time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Chad Erickson. Great to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Robert Littal will stop by from Black Sports Online at BSO if you're looking for him on X, formerly known as Twitter. Get some thoughts with him on some of the big stories from the weekend. Something to consider today. I don't want to spoil it, but it's about Xander Schauffele. We'll say that. Rory McIlroy, a winner on the PGA Tour this weekend, his fourth Wells Fargo championship. He should buy a place in Charlotte. He's pretty good out there. We'll get to that. Caitlin Clark's debut. Sam Yarnell will have some betting advice for us on that. And speaking of Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen, he is here. Speak his name and he shall come. Sam is here. I was in Vegas over the weekend. I made one sports wager, and I was 1 for 1, Sam. I posted the ticket on my Facebook, Twitter. I might have posted on both. But we bet the Yankees at minus 145 yesterday to beat the Rays. Boy, what a crazy game, by the way. Not that we're talking about that here. But I had the Yankees. They're up 6-0 in the 7th inning. I'm just standing at the window going, you might as well just cash this now. Rays score 5 times. They have the bases loaded with 1 out. They're down 6-5. Yankees get out of it, get some bonus runs, some insurance runs, and win the game. So we were relieved.
Just betting advice out there, Jason. I know it was your favorite team, and that's why you bet on them. But
the juice,
really, we're laying 145s
yes.
on money lines in baseball
easily. I'll tell you why. They lost the day before. They're not going to lose again. Simple.
The return on investment is not worth the risk.
There was no risk as far as I was concerned because we knew the Yankees were going to win, and they did. Unlike the Knicks, who did not win. Unlike the Knicks, who do not pass go directly to jail, do not collect $200. The Knicks got mollywopped over the weekend in Indianapolis against the Pacers. And look, I mean, the argument can be made. The team's out of gas. I mean, it's just, I mean, you got Brunson with the foot. He tweaks an ankle. You got no Anunoby. You're probably not going to have him for the remainder of the series. You got no Mitchell Robinson. You got no Bogey Bogdanovic. You've got no Julius Randle. You're out of bodies. Their chance to wrap up this series may have gone with Game 3 because they were right there at the end of that game and come up short. Sam, are they done?
They are, Jason.
Careful.
And how do I put this nicely to you, the Knicks fan?
That's all right.
Because at the end of the third quarter of Game 3 of Knicks Pacers, I almost sent you a text and I was like, the Knicks need to win this game or this series is over. And that was the turning point in the series. That was when the gas tank officially hit empty for New York, and you can see it. I mean, this is a team that lost by almost 40 points yesterday. How do you get 40-pieced in the NBA playoffs, let alone by Tyrese Halliburton? Come on. Yeah, this team's out of gas. It was great while it lasted. They were a very fun team.
Oh, boy. This is an obituary now. This is an obituary. It's not even they're dead. We've already gotten to the obituary for Sam Yarnell. Be careful. Be careful. As Chris Palmer, the former NFL head coach, once told me, when I told him I could kick field goals for his team, and he put me out there and I embarrassed myself during a practice. The less you say, the less you have to take back. Just saying. Because we all got it wrong with the Nuggets and T-Wolves, which we'll get to in a second. Look, I think Madison Square Garden's going to do a lot to rejuvenate the Knicks. And there's some nightmares there and some PTSD, I think, for the Pacers. The officiating in this series, by the way, look, clearly Rick Carlisle got what he wanted after bitching and moaning following Game 2 of this series and sending in his 80 different, video clips of places where he thinks the Pacers got wrong, because the officiating has not been good. And in Game 3, the Knicks kind of got hosed a little bit on some calls in that game. That being said, I think what this boils down to right now is just a gut check time. But even if the Knicks do get through this series, I just don't know what the path to being able to win with so few players left on your roster is. So to me, even if the Knicks did find a way to win 2 of the next 3 games, which they might, they have home court advantage. I just don't know what you could expect from them beyond this series, given the kind of injuries they're facing. Real quick.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I probably shouldn't sit here and write their obituary because Miles McBride could turn into the next, Tyrese Maxey, and he could carry that team, whatever. I would just bet against that happening. I think that there's a reason that even when the Pacers were down 2-0 in this series, they were plus 300 to win it. That number doesn't match up.
Nope, I agree with you on that. Nuggets and T-Wolves, and look, I'll say it, I buried Denver after the first 2 games of this series. And they showed what champions do. They go into Minnesota. They take 2 in a row in rather convincing fashion. I have no idea what happens in the final 3 games of this series at this point. I fully admit I could not tell you. I would not handicap it. I wouldn't put $1 on it because I have no idea.
I agree with you. It's hard to see, but I have the gut feeling that the Timberwolves were kind of like the Knicks. Like, it was a great story while it lasted, and they've got a couple of young, fun players, I guess. But at the end of the day, the big dog is going to eat in the Western Conference. And it took a second. As much as, Jason, you and I have talked with this Nuggets team throughout the course of the season of them flipping the switch game by game, they may have lost that innate ability to do it in game. I think they did not by any stretch lose the ability to do it in series. And I kind of talked about that when we were on the show last week. And that's exactly what we've seen in games 3 and 4.
Denver, by the way, now minus 176 to win the series. The T-Wolves at plus 142. Also, just to give a little love, because there is another series going on out in the West. Oklahoma City trailing the Mavericks 2-1. Oklahoma City plus 176 there. The Mavericks are minus 220. Just to go back to the Knicks here for a second. Knicks now plus 108. Pacers minus 132. Kind of surprised with that number. That number kind of surprises me. With the momentum shift, the way we've seen in those 2 games, I'm kind of surprised. I actually thought it would be. I thought Indiana would be more like minus 175, minus 180.
Well, you've got to remember that the book has to protect themselves at this point from the numbers that they already hung on Indiana that people bought up. So that number, especially when you're live betting these series, those numbers aren't as reflective of what the book actually thinks will happen.
All right, let's get to some baseball on the other side. Paul Skenes makes his debut in Pittsburgh. How did it match up? We'll get to it next.
Over 13 million Americans were affected by identity theft in 2022, and the threats go way beyond just credit card fraud. Today's identity thieves can use your information in ways that are easy to miss by just monitoring accounts and credit, like opening loans, transferring home titles, even committing crimes.
Someone got my social security number, made a driver's license, and it was used for criminal activity.
You can do so much with a social security number that I didn't know could happen. They drained my bank account. It was terrifying.
You're even more vulnerable than you realize. Your information is exposed through online shopping, banking, even corporate data breaches. No wonder there's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. Only LifeLock alerts you to the widest volume of threats all in one place, like someone trying to use your social security number, open a new loan in your name, or even commit a crime in your name.
There was a big yes button and there was a big no button. I clicked, "That's not me," and LifeLock took it from there.
If you become a victim of identity theft, a dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will be assigned to your case and work to fix the issue on your behalf.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you.
All LifeLock members are backed by the LifeLock $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds, personal expenses, and coverage for lawyers and experts up to $1 million. It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity. With LifeLock, it's easy to help protect yourself.
I will be with LifeLock forever.
Join the millions of people already protected by LifeLock. And for a limited time, save 25% on your first year with promo code 25TV. All plans include a 60-day money-back guarantee.
Call 800-710-7531.
Or visit lifelock.com/25TV to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
Attention families with a loved one in a nursing home. If your loved one has suffered from bed sores, falls, broken bones, dehydration, or even death, you may be entitled to a substantial settlement. If you have a loved one who is injured in a nursing home, we will find out what happened. State violations are found against nursing homes every day. You have a limited time to file your claim, so don't wait. Call 800-398-5999 and speak with one of our attorneys. The call is confidential and free.
Welcome back to this Monday edition of the show. Robert Littal, Black Sports Online, drops by in about 10 minutes. If you want to hear what he has to say about the NBA postseason and more. WNBA season about to kick into gear. Sam Yarnell will have some thoughts on Caitlin Clark for that coming up a little later on as well. But we shift gears, talk a little baseball. Coming off a weekend where Paul Skenes shines and the Giants, boy, I'll tell you, in like the last 9 days, they have been hit with the injury bug in a big way. Jung-Hoo Lee being the latest, and that one is a crusher for that team, even though they're able to walk it off yesterday. But let's start with Paul Skenes. I mean, look, we talked about it on, Thursday or Friday, Sam. We were all anxious to see what his debut would look like. What'd you have him at 5.5 Ks for the prop bet there?
I bet him at 5.5 and I bet him at 6.5 and they both cashed.
Oh, beautiful.
I also took a sprinkle on 8+, couldn't get there. But not quite the debut that Paul Skenes wanted, was it, Jason?
I mean, team wins. The bottom line is the team wins.
That
He's
was
not going to be
a crazy game.
It was a crazy game, but the team wins. He showed all the flash and the potential of what he is going to be. So I don't know. I mean, how many major league debuts go like Steven Strasburg? You know what I mean? It doesn't happen that way very often. Did you see what Al Leiter's kid just did? I mean, these types of things happen. I mean, you got to imagine how jacked up this kid was for this, for this first opportunity. I mean, what did he go 16 times over 100 miles an hour in that game? I mean, come on.
His average fastball velocity was 100.1. So he was over 100, but quick math, right? He was probably over 100 more than he wasn't over 100. He set a bunch of records.
Dotting the
he
black.
Threw as many pitches.
I mean, he's painting the black with 101.
He threw as many pitches over 100 miles an hour in, I believe, in this game as the next closest player had thrown pitches over 100 miles an hour all season, and I think that's Aroldis Chapman, but it may be Jordan Hicks. Don't quote me on either of those. It was. I think that a lot of us were expecting Strasburg, though. Like, a lot of us were, because that's the last time we really had someone come up who was a touted college pitcher who set lots of records their last year in college, flew through the minor leagues, and then to boot, when you get into the nuts and bolts of the baseball, throws a fastball that touches triple digits, throws a slider as a secondary pitch that wipes out righties, which, I mean, both looked good for Skenes, but I don't know. It just felt a little bit to me like didn't quite live up to the hype. That's not to say that there wasn't too much hype. I definitely think there was. This was probably built up way more than it should have been in the baseball world, because all we've been talking about since opening day is when is Paul Skenes getting called up whenever we talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates. All that said, the kid's going to have a great career. Don't get it twisted. I've watched this kid pitch at Air Force. I watched him pitch at LSU, and I watched him pitch in Indianapolis. And at all three places, he dominated hitters. He'll figure out how to dominate major league hitters. But it's very interesting to see what kind of hitters did dominate him in that game.
Or succeed. I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's dominate, but succeed. And you mentioned, off the air we talked about, Nico Horner was one that stuck out to you. Why?
Well, the Horner home run, and that was the only real blip on the Paul Skenes radar to me. Obviously, the bases loaded jam with nobody out wasn't great, but that was more brought upon, I think, nerves. The Horner thing is something I think substantial that could stick around as we see this evolution in baseball towards these hard throwing starters who can, touch 100 and then wipe you off the face of the earth with an off-speed pitch. The players that they're going to have trouble getting outs are those players that are short to the plate. Now, I know bat speed is a widely talked about metric over like the last 2 weeks. Everyone's fallen in love with bat speed and the correlation of bat speed and OPS. And don't get me wrong, that is definitely true. There's definitely something there. But
unless it's Giancarlo Stanton, by the way.
Well, hey, he's got the fastest bat speed in the MLB by like a
OPS?
mile and a half
and what's
per
his
hour.
OPS? Exactly.
I want to know what the weight of his bat is, because I think he might be using a lighter bat to swing harder.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, with the Horner thing, those are the kinds of pitchers Skenes is going to struggle with in his career, and players alike are going to struggle with in their careers, because they're guys who can catch up to that 100-mile-an-hour fastball. And frankly, when you're pitching in Division I baseball and even the minor leagues, swings tend to be a lot longer than they are in the major leagues. It's a huge factor in dividing the minor league players from the major league players. So it'll be interesting to me to see how Skenes does with that over the course of his career. It's not a huge concern, though. Don't get me wrong. The kid is great.
Yeah, he really is. The only thing I still say, and if we had David Ardsma on, I'm sure he'd probably agree with this. Guys throwing this hard, you just have to wonder. It always feels like their arm is a ticking time bomb, and that's something that. Yeah, it just, how long do these guys last? They're going to be great for 3 or 4 years, then need Tommy John, something blows up, and then you got to wait a year to get them back, and then they come back. That's a whole nother topic we could spend a segment on. The Giants lose Jung-Hoo Lee for at least 6 weeks. This is a dislocated shoulder that he suffered, freak injury, against the Reds on Sunday. Yes, the Giants wind up winning the game, but they lose the war, so to speak, by losing Jung-Hoo Lee. And they have been ravaged by injuries here as of late. And look, in that National League West right now, kudos to the Padres, got a win yesterday. But it just feels like it's just sitting right there for the Dodgers right now, because I thought the Giants could really be a potential contender out there, and they're really struggling.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jason, on the Giants thing. With the Lee thing specifically, it's interesting to me that this injury happens when it does. You almost feel like, and I'm sure the Giants fans out there will agree with me, there's been a weird something that doesn't add up about Jung-Hoo Lee this season. This is a guy who the peripheral stats aren't as good as the deeper stats on him. This is a guy who is, top percentage in the league in strikeout percentage, in whiff percentage, top 2 percentage points in arm strength. This is a great defensive outfielder who does not strike out a lot. He's only hitting .262, and he's only stolen 2 bases this year. Something doesn't add up. I hope he can reset during this time away from the team.
I wonder what his hard hit percentage is, though. I'd be curious if he's just hitting into bad luck. Like Austin Wells was hitting 200 for the first month of the season, and he was hitting into some of the worst luck imaginable.
So his barrel rate is low, his hard hit percentage is middle of the pack, and his average exit velocity is 49th percentile.
Okay, so maybe the numbers don't lie. We'll come back. Robert Littal will join us. Sam will rejoin us later on in Something to Consider. Don't go anywhere. We proceed on this Monday edition of the show. Something to consider coming up in about 20 minutes. How Xander Schauffele has morphed into Matt Kuchar. We'll get into that. Odds and ends. Sam Yarnell has some prop bets for you when it comes to Caitlin Clark and her debut as the WNBA season gets ready to kick off. We'll actually do a little WNBA as well with this guy, Robert Littal, Black Sports Online, the founder, joins us here on the show to kind of recap some of what we've seen over the weekend and some of the top stories in sports. All right, are the Knicks done, Robert Littal? Yes or no?
Yes, it's the injuries. It's not them personally. I don't think it's a fluke like some other people have said. And people have been kind of hard on the Knicks and the Knicks fans. They're just excited. It's been a long time. They've been trash for a very long period of time. But those injuries, they're starting to pile up, and it's only so much, Jalen Brunson can do on his own. I think the Pacers will take Game 5 and Game 6 simply because they're just more healthy, and they're running them, out the building.
I think it goes 7. I think the Knicks win Game 5, Pacers win Game 6, and then we just put them all our chips into the middle of the table for Game 7 and see what happens. I think MSG will rejuvenate the Knicks. I think they'll find a way to get a win in Game 5. But I said this to Sam earlier, and I'll say it to you. Even if they get through this series, I don't know if they get Anunoby back for a potential series against Boston or Cleveland, probably Boston. But ultimately, I just don't think they have enough bodies at this point in the season. They lost Bogdanovich, Mitchell Robinson's out, Julius Randle's out. I just don't think there's enough bodies for them if we're talking about a series against the Celtics, no matter what you think of Boston and their propensity to underachieve at times. Nuggets, Wolves, I got to admit, I got it wrong, man. I thought this series was over. We had on Sean Drotar last week, who does sports radio in the Mile High City. I thought this thing was done. We could have the funeral for the Nuggets, and they go into Minnesota and show exactly why they're champions. Were you surprised?
A little surprised, but let me tell you when I knew that the Wolves were in a little bit of trouble. They laid an egg in Game 3. They didn't try. They got fat off of the steak. They read their press clippings. Anthony Edwards was Michael Jordan. Jokic was the worst MVP of all time. The Nuggets were fluke champions. They read all of that stuff. They heard all, and they came in and was like, "Oh, we just have to throw the ball out there and we're gonna win." And you never, ever, ever do that in the playoffs. And when you lay an egg in Game 3, now all the pressure turned back to them in Game 4. But the Nuggets had the confidence back then. So even though they played harder in Game 4, it didn't matter because now when the Nuggets are clicking, there's not a team in the NBA that can beat the Nuggets when the starting 5 is clicking. If Aaron Gordon's shooting 11 or 12, the game is over in the first quarter. When they're hitting half-court shots and Jokic is doing the flow, Jokic dunked from the free throw line, basically. I knew it was over, right then and there. Now, we'll see what type of intestinal fortitude the Wolves have, because the series is not open. It's just 2-2, but they let the door open for the Nuggets to get back in.
There was something interesting said in that game. Reggie Miller was kind of talking about, one of the reasons he loves Anthony Edwards was willing to stand up and take the blame and take the responsibility and take sort of the slings and arrows that come from 2 games like they just had. And a lot of people thought that he was basically taking shots at LeBron James. But I heard it differently. He didn't say anything close to really implicating LeBron individually. He was talking about big stars, though, who deflect away from themselves. That could go towards a lot of guys. That could go towards Kevin Durant. That could go towards James Harden. I mean, there's a lot of stars in this league. And there's always been stars in this league that try to blame somebody else, get coaches fired. It's never Trae Young's fault. Let's fire this coach. I mean, so to me, as much as people want to make this about Reggie going after LeBron, I didn't see it that way.
Well, LeBron is the star. And when if you're on social media, you want to collect your $25 check from Elon Musk, you're going to say it's LeBron. You're not going to say it's Trae Young. Because that's the difference between 1,000 likes and 100 likes. So I think sometimes, I think common sense, more people are like you. Like, he could have just been talking in general about big stars. I doubt he was talking about anybody specific. Reggie's not really like that. I don't think he has anything. He's a fan of LeBron from all the times I've ever seen him cover that. But to make it into a story, to make it into something interesting, to make it into something that people want to talk about, you have to attach a name to it. And in this case, people will attach LeBron to it.
You talking, if we're talking about those guys for a second and getting coaches fired and not taking responsibility and all those different things, boy, the Kevin Durant situation in Phoenix right now is a bad situation. You've got a roster where, you've got all these guys making a lot of money. You have very little wiggle room, very little flexibility. You fire Frank Vogel. You hire Mike Budenholzer, which, by the way, just interchangeable guys. You've got Durant, who reportedly wasn't even talking to Vogel over the last couple of months of the season. I don't know how you fix that situation in Phoenix.
Yeah, it's a situation where, like I've said many times, once Kevin Durant decided he was going to go to Golden State, he should have stayed there for the rest of his career. There was never going to be a better teammates and better team that fit his style of play than the Warriors. But he got caught up in, wanting to win one without Steph to show that he could do it on his own. And now he's on a traveling circus of coaches and teams and superstars, and it's only hurted his legacy even more. So, we talk about Budenholzer. He shouldn't even been fired from the Bucks, and you see what's happened to them since that happened. So I think these teams are panicking. I didn't think the Lakers coach, should be fired. I think there's only so much you can do as a coach when there's players that have so much power to do whatever they want to do, and there's so much money tied up. Like what was Frank Vogel supposed to do that he didn't do when Bradley Beal misses half the season and can't shoot a shot in the playoffs?
I said this last week, and I might have said it on the air, I might have said it off the air. If I am the Warriors and your idea is to make one last run with this group, Clay, Dre, and Steph, you've got draft picks. Phoenix needs draft picks. They have no draft capital. Offer them draft picks, offer them Kuminga, maybe Podzinski, and say, Kevin Durant, come back here. Let's run it back one last time. If that's what I do.
Yeah, I've mentioned that before. He made a mistake, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know what he thinks. But like you said, go back. Because still, a team with Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green still has a very good opportunity, whoever looks to put around them, than what they have, right now, either in Phoenix or in Golden State.
That familiarity, that sort of being able to blend in, I think it works. We're coming back. Robert Littal will join us. We got more to get to from the weekend that was. Stick with us.
Attention families with a loved one in a nursing home. If your loved one has suffered from bed sores, falls, broken bones, dehydration, or even death, you may be entitled to a substantial settlement. If you have a loved one who is injured in a nursing home, we will find out what happened. State violations are found against nursing homes every day. You have a limited time to file your claim, so don't wait. Call 800-398-5999 and speak with one of our attorneys. The call is confidential and free.
Welcome back to Sports Wrap on this Monday. Sammy Arnell rejoins us. Something to consider coming up in about 10 minutes on the program. Xander Schauffele, Matt Kuchar. If they look in the mirror, they'd just see each other. Because they're basically the same guy. We'll get to that. After Rory McIlroy wins at the Wells Fargo this weekend with a huge final round in Charlotte. Robert Littal hanging out with us, Black Sports Online. By the way, will you be watching the? Are you a golf guy at all? You play a little bit? You do anything?
Absolutely. I play a little bit, not well, but I do play a little bit. I do watch golf. I came up. A lot of people think because I'm black that I started watching golf when Tiger Woods started watching golf. I mean, playing golf. Not true. I'm a Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer type of guy. That's when I started watching. When they were kind of on their later years, that's when I got into golf.
All right. Tiger, by the way, is plus 22,000 on the betting lines in Vegas to win.
I might put $10 on him.
See, $10 exactly. Why wouldn't you? So give me some thoughts. I know you're a boxing guy, and I wanted to give you a couple minutes to talk about Lomachenko and Kambosos. Lomachenko beats him in the 11th round by TKO in Perth. Big lightweight championship fight. So Lomachenko wins the vacant IBF World Lightweight Championship. What this means in the overall scheme of that division?
Well, hopefully what it means is that Lomachenko, even though he's on the back half definitely of his career, definitely showed he still got a little bit of gas in the tank. A lot of people thought he was robbed when he fought Devin Haney. And the fight that people want to see is either Lomachenko and Tank Davis or Lomachenko and Shakur, Stevenson. They've wanted the Tank Davis fight with Lomachenko for several years, going back almost to 2017, back when Tank was like 24, 25 years old. It just never materialized. And Shakur Stevenson, they're on the same promotional outfit, and he's been looking for a big fight with Top Rank for a while. Now that Lomachenko has a belt, those are two commercially very good fights that could be made. I just hope, because unfortunately, what happens is there's a lot more tweeting than fighting. That's why I like the fighters like Naomi anyway. There's no tweeting, it's just fighting. And a lot of times these American fighters, they tweet so much, they're on social media so much, but then a fight comes out and they're not fighting anybody any good. So hopefully now that Lomachenko has a belt, he's back in ranked number one, that we get a fight either between him and Tank Davis or Shakur Stevens.
Yeah. And look, I mean, to me, I remember having this conversation years ago with Jim Lampley, who used to be with HBO, obviously, when they were in the fight game. And I had this conversation with him, and he's like, people always talk about boxing being down, boxing being a sport that's no longer as relevant. The boxing audience, per se, the real boxing crowd, they haven't gone anywhere. They're still faithful and loyal and love the sport. It's how do you draw in the casual viewer? How do you draw in that casual sports fan? That still is the question for the sport, isn't it?
Yeah, but the one thing people need to understand is when you look at the Forbes list, you see boxers up there real high when they talk about the sports athlete that makes the most money. I think what the issue is boxing is a global sport. It's like soccer. And I think sometimes America, we want to call everything's in our bubble. And if it's not blowing up in America, and boxing is not the number one sport, obviously, in America, we see it as a dead sport. But if you go over to the UK, you go to Japan, you go to Australia, when the boxing is right up there, with soccer as one of the most popular sports there. So worldwide, and now the Saudi, you see the Saudi Arabians are doing fights and bringing those fights to America. So worldwide, the sport's doing very well. And anytime there's a big fight, and I tell you that I'm going, a Canelo fight, Bud Crawford, whatever. When I go, there's not a seat that's not filled. And these guys are making $10, $20, $30 million, for the fight. So if there was no money, that's when it's a dying sport. But the money is still there.
All right, I got to ask you this. This is where sports and politics sometimes intersect. I only got a couple minutes here. Lawrence Taylor at a Donald Trump rally with O.J. Anderson.
Yeah.
I want you to think like 9 years ago, 10 years ago. You couldn't script this stuff. Never in a million years would you think there'd be a presidential rally with Donald Trump on stage and LT sitting there. I just go.
But look, listen, if you really, at first I was just like you. I was like a little shocked, little surprised, little kind of put off a little bit by it. But then I thought about it. If you know Lawrence Taylor the way we know Lawrence Taylor,
yeah.
Doesn't it seem like him and Trump would be friends? It really seems like they may party together. It kind of seems they like little dalliances into the same type of stuff, legally and illegally. If you get what I'm saying. I mean, the only difference is Trump was president and LT went to jail. But the accusations and things of that nature. So once I thought about it like that, of course, because Trump is a guy that Lawrence Taylor, that when it probably comes to LT and says, hey, man, what you got, put it, I don't think it was that bad. I would have pardoned you if I had known about it. So, and I'm going to say this in a serious thing as well. Unfortunately, when it comes to Trump and some of that political party, finding black people to get up on stage and basically talk bad about other black people is something that they look for. Something that they can use as a prop. And, I would hope that people aren't using Lawrence Taylor to decide what they're going to vote for. But maybe there are people that are big fans of LT and say, well, if LT likes Trump, maybe I'm going to like Trump. And that's a very, very scary thing to think about in our society.
Best advice we ever got from LT came in The Waterboy when he said, don't smoke crack. That's it. Best advice we ever got from LT. Best advice we ever got from LT. I'm out of time. Robert Littal, I always appreciate it, my friend. Check him out at BSO. Good to catch up with you, my friend. We'll do it again soon.
Awesome. Anytime. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
What's up, guys? What I'm about to show you is going to change the way you shave your head forever.
You can shave your head in 90 seconds or less.
With no cuts or nicks. It's 100% waterproof.
It even works in the shower.
Introducing Remington's Balder Boss. With increased flex and 5 dual-track floating head design, get over 60% more head coverage for a faster, closer shave and skin-close results.
No nicks, no scrapes. Fit in the palm of my hand, and the results were amazing.
Shave in the shower or with any foam or gel. With Japanese-grade steel blades, plow through the thickest of hair. Anytime, anywhere. There's even a pop-up trimmer to complete your perfect groove. Now, you can try the Remington Balder Boss in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. Complete with a 5-year limited warranty and 100% satisfaction guarantee. You can also get our ear, nose, and brow trimmer free. Just pay separate processing and handling.
Give it a try. You won't be disappointed.
Order your Balder Boss now.
Odds and ends coming up in about 10 minutes here on the show. But first, something to consider. Sam Yarnell rejoins us for that. Something to consider, Sam Yarnell. Rory McIlroy, your winner, for the 4th time at the PGA Tour's Wells Fargo Championship, one of their premier events. So he scores big. Boy, it's just remarkable how some guys can look at a certain course and everything clicks and comes together. And that happened for Rory, who ran away on Sunday in what was a tight tournament through 3 rounds between he and Xander Schauffele. And then Xander Schauffele did what Xander Schauffele does. And this is who Xander Schauffele is. Xander Schauffele, wait for it, is Matt Kuchar. That's who Xander Schauffele is. Just look, he is this generation's version. And I know it sounds crazy to say generation, but Matt Kuchar started playing in 98. I think that's when he kind of made his first splash during the Masters in 98 as an amateur. But that's who Xander Schauffele is. He's a guy that wins lots of non-majors, finishes top 10, top 20 in the ones where he doesn't win, cashes huge paychecks, but can't win the big one. And now this is Lee Westwood. This is one of those guys. That is what Xander Schauffele is becoming. And the longer that narrative sort of is cemented and plays out, you can never get out from under the shadow of that sort of thing. And it feels like that's where we're getting with Xander Schauffele, who feels like he's been in every event this year, not by being in, do I mean playing, but had a chance to win virtually every event. And yet somehow, whether it's somebody playing out of their mind like Rory did on Sunday, or Schauffele coming up short of expectations, that's sort of where we are. Go and look at Matt Kuchar's career. Go and look at Xander Schauffele's career. It feels like they're starting to, you can line them up side by side and just swap the names and you wouldn't know the difference.
I think it's a great comp, Jason. I mean, think about Xander Schauffele. This is a guy who 7 years ago was the PGA Tour's Rookie of the Year. He had 2 wins in his first year on the tour, and he's only had 5 cents. Yeah, very reminiscent of Matt Kuchar, isn't it? My thing about Xander is this. He has done such a good job of making a name for himself without having these signature wins.
Yeah.
That I think when we look back on his career in, 15 years, the way we look back on Matt Kuchar's career today, or that part of Matt Kuchar's career,
made a ton of money, by the way. Made a ton of money.
But I think the only key difference to me is this, and this may be, quite frankly, a product of the social media age or the content age that we're in of golf specifically. I think that when we look back on Xander in a dozen years, it won't matter as much as it does with Kuchar. There won't be as much of that connotation that he couldn't win the big one, especially because of the era that he's in with other letdowns at big events. Like what I'm trying to say is when we have Rory, the way that and the storylines that have created around Rory with his lack of winning these majors and the career Grand Slam, I think that narrative will supersede the Schauffele not having won a major this deep into his career narrative. That's not to say I don't think that he will win one. I do think eventually he'll come across one. All of that said, the player comp is exactly correct. It is all there. And so far in their careers, they're almost exactly parallel.
Yeah, and I just wonder the deeper it gets and the longer it gets and the longer he hears the conversations of who's won them and he hasn't and all that stuff, how much more difficult it gets. PGA Championship odds on Monday as of 9 a.m. Pacific. Scotty Scheffler at 400, Rory at 700, and the third best odds to win, Brooks Koepka, Xander Schauffele, 1,400. Sprinkle on Major Brooks.
I've already played Brooks. I've
What'd
played
you
him
get him
at
at?
16-1. He's down
16.
to 14-1 now. I am also on, as a recommendation from a golf guy I know, there was a Sepp Straka price being offered out there at some houses at 150-1. So I do have a Sepp Straka 150-1 outright.
Give me your money, I'll
ticket.
kick you in the nuts and we'll call it a day. Come on, man.
That number's already down to 90 at most places I've seen. So lots of CLV, and we still have 3 days until the tournament starts.
You're betting real money on Sepp Straka.
He's been red hotly. I mean, did you see him at the Wells Fargo this past week?
It's about winning. You're putting money on him to win. Not to be red hot.
I think that there's a large contingent of people that will understand me saying this. In these majors, at these courses where they travel year to year, obviously Valhalla this year in Louisville, you see the flag from when they had the Ryder Cup right there behind me. With these majors and the nature of them changing between courses, between grass types, between all of that stuff, this is the most open spot to me as a bettor to try and throw these darts, because I feel like from that aspect, the field is a little more open.
Sepp is plus 11,000 right now over on FanDuel, just so you know. Where's Tiger?
Oh my gosh, this guy.
Any idea? I mean, look, it's a golf segment.
Tiger missing the cut, that's where.
Oh, Tiger, by the way, plus 22,000.
Yeah.
Not saying.
Talk about give me your money, I'll kick you, and we'll call it a day.
Odds and ends are next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby. But before we do, this reminder. Check out the vodcast version of Sports Wrap. It's available for you every afternoon, wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn. Anywhere you get your podcasts, it can't be easier than that. Just in case you don't have time to watch us on TV or the DVR or whatever it may be. All right, time for some odds and ends. Sam Yarnell, odds and ends. Is it over? Is it the end for the Boston Bruins after a heartbreaking loss in Game 4 of their Eastern Conference semifinals series, Stanley Cup Finals, Stanley Cup playoffs, rather? They're up, they're down. Now they're down 3-1. A goal that maybe shouldn't have been allowed, and I think Bruins fans have a right to be unhappy about. The game-winning goal for the Panthers could have very easily been an interference call against them. Instead, they go on to win. Is it over for Boston?
It is, Jason, and it's all at the hands of one man, and that's Sam Bennett. So a couple of things with regard to the game last night. Sure, I'm sure the Bruins fans, there is no doubt in my mind that across Boston sports talk radio this morning, they are doing nothing but complaining about NHL referees and Gary Bettman. And sure, that all may be well and good, and there may have been a cross check or goalie interference in the paint, whatever. The fact of the matter is this: you scored 2 goals in 12 minutes. and then you didn't score again the rest of the game. You let Florida score 3 unanswered. Going into that, they had scored 2 unanswered across 2 periods to tie the game up. Florida had taken every ounce of momentum in that barn, and they did it on the road. It was truly impressive and shows you exactly why this team is the favorite to win the Stanley Cup right now, Jason. They're deep. They've got talent on just about every line to the point that you don't really know where the game-winning goal is going to come from. This has been a truly special thing to watch with the Florida Panthers, just utter domination of the Boston Bruins in this series. I can't believe the Bruins even got a game, frankly.
Panthers minus 105 to come out of the East. The Rangers plus 135. Carolina at plus 850. The Bruins at plus 2,300. Over in the West, Dallas plus 130. Edmonton plus 290. The Canucks plus 420. And the Avalanche at plus 440. It feels like we're on a collision course with Dallas either meeting the Panthers or Rangers in the Stanley Cup final.
Dallas is a strong team in the West, and strong as they are seemingly every time they get this deep in the Western Conference playoffs. It's like death taxes and the Dallas Stars being good in April and May at hockey.
Yeah, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that team, the turnover, or I guess lack thereof, that we've seen with the Dallas Stars speaks incredibly to how that team has been able to get back to where they are with Ottinger and Hintz and guys like that throughout that dressing room. It's been awesome to see with the Stars. I like your take with the Stars. I worry that the Oilers are going to come back in this Canucks series, and I think the Oilers still are a force to be reckoned with in these playoffs. All
right, we got a couple of minutes left. Caitlin Clark ready to make her WNBA regular season debut. What do you see in terms of props for her opening game that you like?
Well, I think what's hilarious is that right now, when you look at just league-wide before we get this WNBA season started, Caitlin Clark minus 700 to be the Rookie of the Year. I might take the bet that is the field at plus 440. 700 just seems like a wild number for the books to be hanging.
Is one big injury. And
That's
you don't
exactly
wish
what
it
I was
on
gonna
it.
say.
Yes.
And how liable do we feel to that in a day and age where Caitlin Clark just got done with March Madness, drafted, and boom, here we go with the regular season. Where's the turnover? Now all of a sudden, this woman's going to go out and do everything she just did at Iowa in the WNBA. Don't get me wrong, she is a very special player, but the percentages just don't add up when you're talking about this bet. So give me the field to win WNBA Rookie of the Year at plus 440. We'll get into the game. Obviously, the Fever and the Sun. The Sun are no question going to lay 5.5 in this game. That number, I think, is a very good number when you're talking about the spread and how talented this Connecticut team is. The Caitlin Clark points prop at 21.5 is interesting to me. I think that you could justify betting it either way based on how you think this script goes. If Caitlin plays the whole game, she's going to get across this number easily. I bet you she'll hit 5 threes in the first half, and then you're walking to the window already from there. But it feels to me like there's enough discussion around exactly what Jason and I have been talking about in terms of the longevity of Caitlin Clark's season this year and the turnover from college to the WNBA. There's a part of me that thinks that at least in the beginning of the year, they'll keep Caitlin Clark on a minutes restriction. And I think that's where this point prop comes from, because we know Caitlin Clark and we've watched her play basketball before. It's hard for her to step on a basketball court and not score 22 points. If she's on a minutes restriction, though, and you think that's the way they go, I'm perfectly comfortable betting under in this game.
She could get on fire and have a huge first half in that game against the Sun. And by the way, her 30-point plus number is plus 920. Wow. I mean, I'm not going to lie, man. That's tasty to me. For her to go 30 plus in her debut is plus 920.
Ready for
like
this,
it.
Jason?
Real quick.
Caitlin Clark to score 30.
Yes.
Aaliyah Boston to score 25. Parlay plus 750.
We'll see you back here tomorrow for more Sports Wrap.